Hello and welcome to Coding. Today's tutorial will cover 3 programming concepts: events, functions, and variables. These are fundamental concepts which we like our young programmers to grasp within their first few sessions at Coding. To help us understand these concepts, we will use this simple game of Hangman, which we developed as a HTML document using the programming language JavaScript, so we can play with it in our browser. So here's our game of Hangman. We have Woody as our character. We've already listed the words, the answers, so we've selected programming concepts. And here we put in our letter, our guesses. A, so we can already guess that the answer must be random. So we can see our lives remain unchanged. The animation does not update. We get the message to say that random is the correct word. We get the message winner. So let's see now what happens when we don't guess correctly. So we see that it's a 4-letter word. We know it must be loop. So let's try a letter that's not in the word loop and see what happens. So we see we're losing our lives each time we make an incorrect answer, and the animation is updated and Woody is hanged. So how does this game actually work? Well, to understand what's happening under the hood, we can view page source. And here we have the HTML document, the number of images that we've used. We've got the styling here, .css file. But it's the .js file that we're most interested in for the purposes of this tutorial. This is our program. This is our JavaScript file. So at the beginning, we have a list of 5 variables, VAR being short for variable. Variables are places in memory to store data. We can use as many as we like in our program. Here at the beginning we have listed 5 variables. The name of our variable is always to the left of the equal sign and the value is always to the right. So it has a name, a variable has a name, a variable has a value, a variable also has a scope. So what does scope mean? Basically, we're asking ourselves the question, is the variable required for the entire duration of the program or just for part of it, after which we no longer need to assign memory to it? So I can tell you straight away that the variables here listed at the top are required for the entire duration of the program, whereas the variables which are contained within a function, for example, this variable here, is only required for the duration of that function, after which it will be discarded from memory. To recap what we need to know about variables. Variables have a name, variables have a value, and variables have a scope. Now let's take a look at functions. As we've known from previous lessons, a function is a few lines of code that does something. We can use pre-assigned functions provided by our programming language, and we can create our own, which gives us lots of possibilities. In this game, for example, we have a function which is called start game, show word list, submit guess, update artwork, show game lost, and show game won. There are 4 things we need to remember about functions. Function has a name. Typically a function has an action verb in the name, such as start game, end game, in this case submit guess. Move forward is a function name we've seen in our code.org games, or create square, for example. The second thing we need to remember about functions is they may have arguments. The third thing is code, which are basically instructions. And the fourth thing to remember is that every function returns something or returns nothing, but it must have a return statement which ceases execution of the function. So after writing our variables and then our functions, when are they activated? Our functions do nothing if our program is not listening for an event. What do you think the event would be here in the game of Hangman? Nothing happens until the user selects a letter and presses enter. The enter key is known as key number 13, We can see here we have added an event listener key press, key number 13, and then the function submit guess is activated. So the two things we need to remember about events is, one, how do we know when they happen? And two, what do we do when they are triggered?